Hey everybody, welcome back to the fourth and final edition of Races at the Lake for 2023. We are racing the Masters field. It's a mixed field, but we're racing the 45 group as they're scored separately. And right off the gun here, Tom from Summit Freewheelers sends an early race attack. By the way, I found out after the fact that it's Tom's birthday today. So hey Tom, glad you had a good race. Happy birthday to you, my friend. Now, Tom has been off the front. We're on the end of lap one here. We're coming up the start-finish line, which is a pretty slight, consistent hill. And I want to start bringing Tom back. Nobody else seems to want to work. But all of my racing, and most importantly, all the race commentary that I hear and I watch says, don't attack on an uphill. Don't attack on an uphill. It's really hard to get the gap, and you're just going to put a ton of work in. As we come up over the hill, there'll be a downhill that I'll talk about here in a second as I take advantage of that. But ETP Cycling today has 4 racers in this event. Our goal is to help support Brian get to the top step of the podium in the 45 plus field. Brian has been a sponsor of ETP Cycling since the beginning of our team. He's the local owner of Gear Up Velo Bike Shop, which is in Independence, Ohio, and is somebody that I have trusted with my bikes, and I mean everything about my bikes, from purchasing to repairs, for the last 9 years. So really looking to do everything I can to help Brian get that top step win today. Now here we are, we're on the downhill section, right? So I said I didn't attack on the uphill, but it is time to start pulling Tom back. So another Summit Freewheeler rider comes in on the right-hand side of the screen. I've got momentum. I'm going to use this right now, split the two, and begin my attack to pull back. Now if you listen carefully, right as I make this turn, behind me, you just heard it, was a big crash. It's really wet today, but it's not a hard rain, so the rain didn't clean the roads. It's a really light mist, and it just brought all kinds of grease and dirt kind of to the surface of the road. And as you look, you'll see that, number one, we're in like an area where there's parking lot stripes. There's also these tar lines that have been sealed, and it is just really slippery. Now this crash was actually pretty bad. They're going to neutralize the race here in just a minute when we come around. We don't know it yet, so we're still kind of racing through, but they are going to neutralize it. They had 4 or 5 riders go down. One gentleman broke his collarbone. Thankfully that was the worst of the injuries, but still that's pretty bad when you think we're just out here trying to have fun on the weekend, right? Yeah, somebody's asking right now who went down, and I said I'm not sure, right? I'm not even sure at this point if any of our teammates had gone down, or Brian, who we're riding for, had gone down. Thankfully, none of my teammates did go down. So we're rolling up here on the back side of the course. We're going to come back up to the start-finish, and you're going to see, I think, the organizers here, Mark and Summit Freewheelers, really did the right thing here. They neutralized the race. There was an ambulance on the other side of the course where the accident took place. Again, we don't know it right now. That's why you see us still kind of putting in the effort to pull Tom back, who we have pulled back about half of his gap before we hit the bottom of the hill here. When we get up to the top of the hill, you'll see the race organizer telling us that they're going to go ahead and neutralize the race. They had us go back to the parking lot and just kind of wait for instructions. It took about 15 minutes for them to get everybody safe and everybody taken care of and cared for off the course, and then they restarted us. And here we go. You see the officials out on the road here on the right-hand side by the start-finish line, telling us that they're going to go ahead and ask us to stop and neutralize the race. Accident. All right, so here we are. We're back. We're on a neutral rollout, so we're getting ready to get back into the race, and we're just coming into the first turn back into the parking lot. I think everybody's nerves were a little high coming back in from this wreck, so it was kind of curious to see what would happen. I mentioned to Brian to be very attentive here because it's going to be a little bit shorter race, and sure enough, you'll see on the left-hand side, here goes Tom again. So being attentive, being in good position is critical in these races, and because I was able to stay on his wheel. There's one of his teammates in front of him, right? They're different age groups, so they're going to work together. I don't need to jump around him. I just need to cover this move. They're both strong riders, and if we can get a gap, great, we'll work together. I'd love to work with these two. They've got tons of they're capable of doing tons of watts and working a strong breakaway. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. So here I am sitting at about seventh wheel, and oftentimes I'll talk to one of my teammates, Tim, about, when do we attack? When do we attack? Well, the best place to attack is from a little bit back. So here you see me from about seventh, eighth wheel, sending an attack through the parking lot. Parking lot's a great section to do this. It's a slight uphill, about 3%. So it's not a true hill, it's just a false flat. But yeah, when you spring from about sixth or seventh wheel from the back, you catch everybody off guard and you're able to have a little momentum. I did create some separation here. A couple of guys came with me, but nobody really wanted to work, so it just neutralized out. Again, just patrolling on the front, Stefan in the white kit on the left-hand side of the screen sends a nice little attack. Being in right position lets you counter these moves quickly. It lets you stay on the right wheels when you see things coming. And so again, just the key here for me was positioning, because I don't want Brian to have to do a lot of work. I want Brian to be able to stay behind me, maybe not directly on my wheel, but ideally, and reap the benefits of the work I'm willing to do for him so that he can stay as fresh as possible for the finish. Speaking of, there goes Brian. And a couple of geese in the middle of the road there. So Brian sends a nice attack here, which is really good. I like this move. Unfortunately, I don't think it was hard enough, and nobody that went with him went hard enough. And timing-wise, they were going straight into the hill. So you'll notice everybody kind of easily catches back up to that threatening move, and it just doesn't stretch out the way it needs to. He would have probably been better served waiting until halfway up the hill or all the way up the hill, just like the Summit Freewheelers rider on the left did, to make his move. Now I'm stuck, I'm boxed in, so I had to yell at him. Even though he just made a move, he's got to go get that, right? At this point, we're about 6 or 7 laps to go, and we can't really let anything get away without one of us being in it. Now, he's just kind of covered 2 moves, so I'm going to come around to this again in a second here. I'm going to use my momentum from the position that I'm in, about 4 wheels, 5 wheels back. I'm using the downhill section, and I'm going to bridge up to those 2 riders. And you're going to see, just using timing and positioning, then coming through this little technical section, I'll make up most of this gap. I'll close this down between the downhill section and the little chicane section up here. Now, at this point in the race, one of the things that we didn't do well as a team is we didn't communicate in the race really well. There goes Brian covering a move right now that's honestly not a threatening move, right? It's not a bad decision on his part. It's a good decision if you can get completely away. And I noticed that group that he's with is starting to get a little bit too big, right? That's going to be 4 or 5 riders. This guy wants to give me a free ride up to my teammate. I'm going to take that. But Brian, I think, burned a match right here that he didn't need to burn. That rider up the road wasn't going to go far on their own. So that was an opportunity, I think, one match out of his match book before the end of the race, and I should have told him not to do that and just to stay on my wheel. We're about 3 or 4 laps down here. Now you'll notice Stefan again on the left. Just being in your right position and paying attention is critical. Stefan was on the left, and I noticed he was getting ready to kind of put in an attack. He did it from the front, though, which isn't great timing. But I was able to see it. This guy in front of me kind of gave me the free ride up to Stefan, but I was absolutely positioned to cover that move. Now, Stefan is 100% a threat. He is an incredibly strong rider. He's a former teammate. And if he gets away on his own, there's a good chance he can hold that gap all the way through for a solo finish. So I'm just going to stretch across, bridge over to his wheel, and let him do some work. And he lets off because he knows that that's not the move that's going to get away. Here we are again on the front. Tom from Summit. Again, happy birthday, Tom. Sends another birthday flyer. Tom is in the 55 plus group. So again, Tom's a great rider, super strong rider. At this point, with a few laps remaining, I'm racing for Brian, and there goes Brian. Brian rolls to the front. Again, tactically, here's what I would say. Rolling to the front or attacking to Tom's wheel. If he would have attacked and created separation and split the group to get to Tom's wheel, and then it was just the two of them, that's a good move. What he's doing right now is a ton of work to bring the entire field back to Tom. And again, I wish we would have communicated better. I wish I would have told him at this point in the race just to stay on my wheel. I'm not going to let anything get away. I'm not going to let anything of threat just roll off of the front. So at this point, because he's on the front, I've got to get back up there. So I take an opportunity through the parking lot section here just to move up a little bit closer to him and try to reposition so that he gets behind me and starts thinking about the finish of this race. So we're about 2 laps to go here. I'm going to let it run. I believe I'm going to let it run all the way through. These two guys are on the same team. This is great. They just attack from the front. So again, attacking from the front is really hard to create separation. And you'll see that this guy was able to kind of easily cover that. I was able to easily cover that. And we're just sitting in his draft while he's putting in some work. Now, maybe he's thinking he's going to lead out his teammate from 2 laps to go. I'm not sure. But with only two teammates, that certainly would not have been my plan. My plan with Brian was to, from this exact point with no laps to go, so a half a lap to go, to be doing the exact same thing with Brian on my wheel, leading him out to the bottom of the start-finish line hill, and then having Brian just go for his sprint finish and get that elusive win. But you'll see this is just kind of soft pedaling right now. We're heading up the hill. The pace is out of this thing. I don't want to go too early, but Summit sends a good attack. So this is a smart play. 1 lap to go. They've got, I think, 6 or 7 guys in the field. Gets a nice little gap. But what I'm going to say is what I've been saying throughout this entire video. He attacked on the uphill. Now, it's not a terrible idea. It's just not the best idea. Because as you can see, we're all kind of going about the same pace, working kind of hard up the hill. And if somebody attacked now at the top of the hill, you have a higher likelihood going downhill into the technical section of getting your gap. So now I'm just going to start surfing wheels. It's not important for me to be on the front right now. I do not know, and this is my mistake in the race, and this is really where we lose the race. I don't know where Brian is. I assume he's on my wheel because that's what we were kind of planning to do prior to the race. But I did not look back to check. I didn't double check to see where he was. I'm just focusing on positioning and making sure that I'm keeping him safe. So we're going to stay in the front and making sure that anything threatening we cover, and then when we get the opportunity to start the lead out. So this is working out really good for me. We've got the one rider up the road. These two teammates aren't really working together, right? They're riding side by side right now. They're not even helping each other with the draft. Now they're starting to slot in a little bit, but they weren't racing really super together. And so I'm actually going to jump this guy's wheel because he starts to let the gap go, which is probably a good move if that's what he was intentionally doing. So I'm going to jump his wheel, and I'm going to get into this draft as we're going through the parking lot here. We're keeping the pace pretty high. Again, I'm assuming that my teammate's on my wheel, but shame on me, I did not check. He was not on my wheel. He had accidentally gotten shuffled back about 9-10 places. So if I knew that, I would have changed my tactic right now, and I would have been thinking more about the race finish on my own instead of leading him out. I can see that the Summit guy is now in sight. We know that's going to come back. This guy, I'm just going to sit on his wheel as long as possible. And in a second, you're going to see Stefan and another rider come over the top. And now it's time to really go. So now we're going to put in a little dig. I'm going to jump on this guy's wheel. We're going to come around. I want you to watch Stefan in the white, too. He's going to lose his rear wheel here in a minute. And it's incredible that he kept this thing up. Stefan's a world-class bike handler and bike racer. You can see him really putting in a dig. I thought this was his effort for a solo move, and right here, there it goes, back wheel slides right out. Really happy that he didn't go down. He's just such a great guy. So here we are. We're coming into the uphill finish here. I'm giving it everything I have right now in the hope that Brian is going to come over my wheel any second. I keep waiting. He should be coming around my wheel, just slingshotting around for the win. And he doesn't. here comes this Jamie from CCA does, and I just kind of rolled in for third. So unfortunately, not the end we were hoping for, but still a solid day out racing for the team. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more race coverage soon.